What's trending now?
Add them on Facebook.
Let the tweeting begin. The hashtag does that.
News and views from Belf's News Gallery.
So Donald Trump won the GOP primary, the Republican primary in South Carolina. And it was announced immediately after the polls closed. So polls closed at 7 p.m. and boom, they were out with the results. Trump was the winner. And it was a crushing blow for Nikki Haley in her own home state, but she'll stay in it. She said, "What I saw today was South Carolina's frustration with our country's direction. I've seen that sense of frustration nationwide." She said, "This has never been about me or my political future. We need to beat Joe Biden in November. I don't believe Donald Trump can beat Joe Biden." She says that Trump drives people away in droves. Not based on the vote in South Carolina, he doesn't. Wow. So the Americans for Prosperity Action. It's a network backed by the Koch brothers. They are pausing their financial support for Nikki Haley as a result. So she loses in South Carolina then to Trump. She's now also lost a significant amount of money from Americans for Prosperity Action. And the group said they still endorse Nikki Haley for president, but now their support will come only verbally, no cash. They said instead, we will continue to endorse her, but we will focus our resources, their financial resources, where we can make the difference. That's powerful, isn't it? Nikki Haley's not making a difference, so why would we spend our money there? Ew, ouch. Also, while we're talking about Trump in South Carolina, Senator Lindsey Graham was with Trump in South Carolina. And The Hill says that Trump was met with a hostile reception after Trump introduced him. And they vehemently booed against Lindsey Graham. And Trump said, Lindsey Graham, he said, he calls on Lindsey Graham when he's in trouble on the left. And Trump joked of Lindsey Graham saying he doesn't do too much television. He's joking, obviously. And he said of Graham, he happens to be a little bit further left than some of the people on this stage. But I always say, when I'm in trouble on the left, I call up Lindsey Graham, and he straightens it out. So then Graham he was booed loudly throughout his remarks. And Graham said, "This is the most qualified man to be president of the United States. And let it be said that South Carolina created the biggest political comeback in American history," Lindsey Graham said. So Trump was also asked about his wife and whether former First Lady Melania Trump will be out on the campaign trail. And he said, yeah, actually, she will be quite a bit. He was during the town hall with Laura Ingraham last week. Trump praised Melania, calling her a private person who's focused on her family. That's why she's not been, as you know, her mother recently died. But Trump suggested she will be on the road with him more often in the future. And Trump said, it's funny, she was a very successful model, very, very successful, and yet she was a private person. She's going to be out a lot, not because she likes doing it, but she likes the results, he said. She wants to see this country really succeed. She loves the country. And he said, a lot of first ladies would go out. They want to be everywhere. They get angry at their husband because he's not introducing them. If I didn't introduce Melania, she'd be very happy about it. He said She's just a different kind of a person. But they will be out and together, and she will be campaigning for Trump moving forward, he says. But I understand what Donald Trump is saying here. She was a very successful model, and yet she's a private person. You find that to be true of a lot of people whose jobs put them in the public eye. They can be intensely private people. That's not unusual. Also, a member of the U.S. Air Force is in critical condition. He set himself on fire outside of the Israeli embassy in Washington yesterday afternoon. There was a video that was live streamed on Twitch, and this guy identified himself as a member of the U.S. Air Force, and he said, "I will no longer be complicit in genocide. I'm about to engage in an extreme act of protest." He shouted, "Free Palestine," and lit himself on fire. And a spokesperson for the Air Force says he is an active duty airman, but he wouldn't discuss his identity or rank. His name is out there. He identified himself at the start of this clip that's online. It said his name is Aaron Bushnell. So he's in critical condition. Also, Oppenheimer continued to steamroll through the SAG Awards over the weekend. Oppenheimer winning the top prize for Outstanding Cast. At the 30th Screen Actors Guild Awards, there were a number of, I think Lily Gladstone was also a winner at the SAG Awards. Canadian federal police said on Friday that their systems were targeted by a cyber attack. They called it alarming, but said there was no impact on operations, no known threat to the safety of Canadians. But Canadian federal police saying their systems were targeted by a cyber attack. Also, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, saying yesterday that 31,000 Ukrainian soldiers have died over the past 2 years since Russia invaded the country. He said 31,000 Ukrainian military personnel. And he said not 300,000, not 150,000, not whatever Putin and his deceitful circle have been lying about. But nevertheless, each of these losses is a great sacrifice for us, he said, among his comments yesterday. Also, U.S. and British forces have carried out strikes against more than a dozen Houthi targets in Yemen. This happened on Saturday, and the United States has carried out nearly daily strikes against the Houthis. They control then some of the most populous parts of Yemen, and U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said the strikes were meant to further disrupt and degrade the capabilities of the Iranian-backed Houthi militia. And he said, "We will continue to make it clear to the Houthis that they will bear the consequences if they do not stop their illegal attacks." Also, Florida lawmakers have passed a bill banning social media for anyone under 16. We've talked about this before. So the legislature in Florida controlled by Republicans, and so now that measure goes to the desk of Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, passed by lawmakers last Thursday and trending, but still this morning, over the weekend. Also, the body of that Russian opposition leader, Alexei Navalny, who died in prison about 2 weeks ago. His remains were delivered to his mother over the weekend. So it's unclear what would happen next. Russian President Vladimir Putin late last week responded to Joe Biden calling him a crazy SOB. This is what President Joe Biden said last week, calling Putin a crazy SOB. So Putin responding to that and says he still prefers to work with Biden over Trump. And he said, we're ready to work with any president, but I believe that for us, Biden is a more preferable president for Russia. And judging by what he has just said, I am absolutely right. He's grinning while he says it. An illegal immigrant from Venezuela has been arrested and charged for the murder of a nursing student who was found dead in a wooded area of the University of Georgia at Athens. That's just a sickening story. So he was arrested and booked for the murder of Laken Riley. She's the nursing student, charged with malice murder, felony murder, aggravated battery, other criminal violations, including kidnapping in the country illegally from Venezuela. An Illinois judge who made a number of people angry by reversing a man's rape conviction involving a 16-year-old girl has now been removed from the bench. Judicial oversight body found that he circumvented the law, engaged in misconduct, so the Illinois Courts Commission removed Adams County Judge Robert Adrian from the bench on Friday. That was after a 3-day hearing. They said that Adrian had engaged in multiple instances of misconduct and abused his position of power to indulge his own sense of justice while circumventing the law. I wonder how often that's going on the bench, that we see that happening. Probably more often than we'd like to admit. Also, justthenews.com says an analysis by the news media watchdog group. This is a watchdog group called All Sides Technology, says that about 63% of the stories last year on Google News were from left and left-leaning news sources. I can attest to that. I'm on Google News every morning. I use it, I look at it, and believe me, it is a left-leaning, and they're saying it's gotten worse. It's gotten worse. That actually Google News moved further left in 2023. So their percentage of left-leaning stories was 61% in 2022, now rising to 63%. For my taste, it would be even more than that. It's pretty incredible. An Apache military helicopter crashed Friday afternoon in it happened in Mississippi, and Governor Tate Reeves said tragically both guardsmen on board did not survive. The soldiers were part of the Army Aviation Support Facility based in Tupelo, Mississippi. Also, hundreds of migrants were dropped off Friday at a San Diego bus stop. Instead of at a reception center, because the reception center is so overrun. San Diego's out of money. So the reception area is overrun, out of money. So they just dropped them off at the bus stop in San Diego. A former Dallas Cowboys wide receiver has passed away. Golden Richards died at his Utah home on Friday morning. He was 73 years old, and Richard had been fighting congestive heart failure. He had a number of health and drug abuse issues over the years and lost his battle on Friday. That's sad. Speaking of former NFL stars, Richard Sherman was arrested Saturday on suspicion of driving under the influence, according to the Washington State Parole. Other stories that are trending this morning. U.S. lawmakers are responding to reports that the Pentagon is tracking yet another high-altitude balloon over the western part of the country. You may remember that a Chinese spy balloon was shot down by the U.S. So now they're tracking another. Also, have you heard of Flacco, this owl in New York City? The owl apparently died, and it escaped the zoo some time ago. It had been seen in the wild, then in New York City. Well, Flacco was found dead on the sidewalk Friday night after apparently flying into the side of a building, and the tributes are pouring in for the owl. Also, the moon lander named Odysseus is apparently, after landing on the moon, first private craft to land on the moon, it tipped over on its side. And the company behind this says that Odysseus is still alive and well, but yes, it is resting on its side. They said this on Friday. So Odysseus made it to the surface intact on Thursday, but the craft apparently tripped over its own feet as it was close to descent. And that's a look at the stories trending this morning in Belf's News Gallery.